Hello and welcome to another episode of PodcastDX, the show that brings you interviews with people just like you, whose lives were forever changed by a medical diagnosis. I'm Lita.
I'm Ron.
And I'm Jean Marie.
I sounded a little squeaky there.
Okay.
Collectively, we're the host of PodcastDX. On today's show, we are speaking with Arushi Lohiya. Arushi is a marketing and branding strategist, something that we need terribly over here. She's an amateur poet, an animal lover like myself, and a fibromyalgia warrior. I love that term.
Hi, Arushi.
Hi, so lovely to connect with all of you.
Absolutely. Good, I was going to say good morning, but good evening, I guess, where you're at. Thank you for...
Yeah, almost night for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show with us today. From your perspective, please tell our listeners about fibromyalgia. What is it, please?
Sure. So technically, fibromyalgia, if you talk about it medically, it is a chronic pain ailment which causes aches and pains all throughout your body, whether it's muscles, nerves, or your joints. The pain, however, the degree of pain and the location of pain differs from person to person. So, like in my case, my hip and my back problem area, the pain there is so excruciating that it almost renders me immobile. I have not sat in the past 9 years. I lie down on the bed or I stand, but the pain's really bad for me there. But if you speak to another fibromyalgia patient, they'll probably have a similar excruciating pain, but somewhere else, not in the hip. So that is what makes this ailment even more crazier and confusing for all patients and doctors because, it's excruciating pain, but it's very different from patient to patient.
Okay. Gotcha.
And Arushi, when were you first diagnosed? How long did it take you to get a diagnosis?
I was first diagnosed somewhere around early 2014, but I started seeing, symptoms early 2012, pretty much January of 2012, where aches and pains over my body started developing, my back, my neck, to do daily basic chores at work. Started, but after I got my diagnosis, now when I look at it in hindsight, I've had inexplainable headache 2006, 2004,
Okay.
2006.
Okay.
So, since there's no exactly, my doctors are also on the fence about it. I could very much have it since 2004, and my symptoms didn't kick in full swing until 2012 probably, but it does take a long time to get diagnosed usually.
Right. Well, yeah, as you were saying, since it can vary so much as far as signs and symptoms, yeah, right. I can see how it would be challenging. Had you ever heard of fibromyalgia before you were diagnosed with it?
I had no idea when the doctor said fibromyalgia, me, my family, none of us had heard of it. So he asked us to go do a research, Google up, but no, neither me or no one around me had heard about this term before.
Okay.
Well, and now that you're familiar with it, do you know anyone else in your family or, friends that have fibromyalgia?
Thankfully, nobody in my family or friends as such, but over time I've met so many people online in the chronic pain community who have fibromyalgia, and more and more now through social media I'm meeting more and more people in India, outside, who have had fibromyalgia or are going through it.
Okay. So Arushi, this is an acquired condition. It's not something congenital, right?
Yes, it is so far not congenital, but the jury is out on it. They don't know what causes fibromyalgia. There are multiple, thought processes and areas where there are certain people, certain doctors who think genes might play a role. Some attribute it to, environmental factors. Some people attribute it to a physical or an emotional trauma, but the jury is out.
Okay.
There is no known cause nor any known cure for fibromyalgia.
Well, in your specific case, how has your fibromyalgia been treated?
It's not treated. We're kind of managing with it. Like I said, there is no treatment for it. So it's pretty much pain management basis your symptoms. So with me, like I said earlier, my biggest struggle is, because my hip area is so tender. So imagine a slightest touch on my hip feels like somebody stabbed me with a hammer, So it's that painful. So sitting or putting any pressure on my hip feels like I'm sitting on a bed of thorns or nails. So, which is why I can't sit. That has completely, rendered me immobile and changed my life a lot, because not being able to sit restricts you from doing a 9-to-5 job, going out, doing so many things. So in my case, that's the biggest hurdle. Apart from that, there are 10,000 other symptoms that come with it. I have pain in neck, shoulders, so I'm not able to type. Sometimes even basic daily activities like combing my hair, brushing my teeth, these things are painful. So it's a lot of, over the years, multiple hit and trial practices, which, you figure out what works for you, but it's purely managing the pain to a certain level. There is no cure for it.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Arushi, what type of a doctor do you see for fibromyalgia? Is it a rheumatologist?
Technically, it is a rheumatologist who one needs to go to. But again, the complication is because your nerves are involved, your bones are involved, so I often end up seeing a neurologist too, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, an orthopedic. So it's like pretty much every discipline. There's some area that gets affected, so you see a variety of doctors. But a rheumatologist is a person who would house your case.
Okay. So, but it really turns out to be a team effort.
Yeah. And to get, have doctors work together as a team is a tough issue,
It is.
Yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes. I understand that. Well, in addition to pain, what other symptoms do you have associated with fibromyalgia?
There's a lot of fatigue. I have sleep issues, barely manage to get 3-4 hours of sleep in a night. There is, irregular heartbeat. I get palpitations sometimes. You name it, headaches, migraines. So pain being the predominant symptom, but irritable bowel syndrome, the digestion goes weak, chemical sensitivity. So any medicine I take, when you go to the rarest form of side effects, my body will get that, because my body is so sensitive to any chemical, any diet. So, these smaller things, when everything adds up together, then it makes it even more complicated.
Sure.
Well, and I will say this, though, I guess despite or in spite of everything, you have a very positive, you're a very positive personality that really resonates. And I just wonder, has that really helped you throughout this journey?
Yeah, it took me a time to get to a place where I can accept and learn to kind of find my own happiness where I am.
Okay.
But I feel it does help. I very early on in this fight with fibromyalgia thought that everything else is in not my hands. It's the doctors or the scientists who have to come and find a cure. I can't do anything in that, but what I can do is make sure that my outlook and my positivity remains, so that, I'm at least more accepting to any. So I've made a conscious effort to, keep a positive outlook. It's not easy. There are days when I'm, down and out, but I guess over time you kind of learn to deal with it because there's nothing else you can do. It's not that tomorrow or after 1 month I know that it's going to get sorted. I have to live with it, so might as well not crib about it and be as happy as I can be in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a good outlook to have. Yeah. So let me ask you, do you get assistance with your health care from family or friends, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, my family is my biggest support system. My mom, pretty much her day revolves around me taking care of my smallest needs to, because I can't do my own household chores, cooking for me, taking care of me, getting everything done for me, all the emotional support. So my strength, she's my rock through all this. When I got diagnosed, I was living in a different city in India, so I quit my job, I moved back home, and now I'm back home with my family. So without them, I don't know if I'd be even, I would have been able to manage this at all.
Gotcha. My next question has to do with stigma. We talk with people, and they tell us, like, with some different invisible illnesses, that people in general society, their friends, and sometimes even their family don't really get it and understand it, and place like a stigma on there. What are your thoughts on, is there an unwarranted stigma placed on people with fibromyalgia, especially where you live?
There is, chronic illness, and especially, like you said, anything that is invisible in nature, because I'm not in, a wheelchair, or I don't have an aid that I used to walk with. When you see me physically, I look pretty much how I used to look before, fibromyalgia happened to me. So there is a whole stigma that goes around, and very correctly said, it's not only society, it's family also. So I'm very lucky that my parents and my brother, they get what I'm going through, but distant family, not as much, in spite of that. And that builds such a whole layer of emotional trauma that one ends up dealing with, because there's so much physical trauma you're already dealing with, and that there is that layer of emotional trauma. And not only society, doctors, especially in a country like India, where doctors themselves don't know what fibromyalgia is. I've had doctors tell me, quote unquote, this is a Western world's disease, people in India don't get fibromyalgia.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Wow.
Yeah, I studied in the U.S. actually. I studied at Iowa State. So I even had a doctor ask me that you probably got it from there. I was like, no, I was fit and fine. It happened 5 years, 6 years after coming back here,
Yeah.
So there, and they don't listen to your symptoms. It's got worse because first 2 years, doctors kept telling me, there's nothing, just keep working, keep doing your thing. It's all in your mind. There's nothing, you're fine. And, it just kept spiraling and getting worse. I wish I had gotten better medical treatment back in the day. I probably would have been in a better state.
Right.
Sure.
You should go back and tell that doctor that no Iowa State cyclone will give you my fibromyalgia. Okay, that's just not going to happen. But it's great, seriously, all kidding aside, it's great that you have a lot of family support, because that's huge. It's absolutely huge when you're dealing with something that, is chronic pain.
Right. That's got to be half the battle. Arushi, I noticed that you say that laying flat helps your symptoms. Is there anything else that you've noticed that will make your symptoms better or possibly worse?
Let me tell you what makes it better first, because those are fewer things. For what makes it worse, we're going to probably go days on end talking about it.
All right.
But hot treatment, hot showers, a hot water bottle helps with the pain temporarily. Ice compressing, cold packs do help. Some small, very gentle stretching does help at times. So you can't go excessive with exercise, but very gentle stretching. I do tie a lot of like ACE bandages and different compression aids. So gloves and compression socks, they help me with my aches and pains. And yes, like you said, rest and lying down flat on my tummy because I can't touch my hips, so I can't lie down on my back. So I lie down on my tummy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lie down on my tummy. That's the only posture I can lie down in. But these things do help a tad bit. What makes it worse is pretty much everything under the sun. Any kind of a daily chores, daily activities. The weather change screws up my system completely. Any sort of like a physical exertion. If a day I decide to write a little bit more, type a little bit more, then I'm in spiraling for the next 2 days. If I end up meeting somebody one day, then my next whole week, I struggle to even take a shower. So it's like just weighing every activity you do and just like pacing yourself into small bits and pieces. That's the only way to survive it.
Sure. I had a lower back problem for years. Even though I had surgery, actually I still do, so I don't know why I'm saying I still have a lower back problem, even though I had surgery. But I do remember that one of the treatments that they did for me was that they injected a probe into the nerve where the pain was the worst, and they deadened that nerve, and it worked. Ablation, right. It worked for about a week, and this was how they pinpointed which nerve was really causing the most pain. And I'm just wondering if such a treatment might help your pain, if they could at least pinpoint which nerves are being triggered and possibly be able to use a TENS unit in that area or do an ablation, which might last longer. Have you ever talked to your pain doctors about that?
Oh, yeah. Does it?
I have. I've, in fact, tried a nerve block as well. I've tried TENS as well, but none of it has helped me. So basically, in fibromyalgia, what happens is the central processing of the pain signals that gets screwed, not a particular nerve or a bunch of nerves that's acting up. So like today, it's so unpredictable. Today you ask me, I'll say my right leg is in a bad state. Tomorrow I'll say, no, I have no pain in my right leg. It's my left leg,
Okay.
So it keeps
it's moving around. Right.
And it's not, yeah.
Right, I see. So that makes it hard. Arushi, what advice do you have for someone who has recently been diagnosed with fibromyalgia?
My advice would be to, not take it lightly, because I have also I know people who, have lived a very full life with fibromyalgia. So when you can, when the symptoms just kick in, make sure to, go to a chiropractor, go to a physiotherapist, and start working on your muscles and building more of immunity and strength in your muscles, because with fibromyalgia, you don't know when the scales tip. I'm an athlete and a runner, and I probably had fibromyalgia that time, but the symptoms hadn't kicked in. So I strongly feel that, as soon as you hear the word fibromyalgia, just stop everything else, work, everything comes secondary, start concentrating on your body.
Okay, good
advice. Yeah, that's some great advice, absolutely. I understand that you use poetry as a creative outlet and a means by which you spread awareness. Now, Lita and I are both recreation therapists, so we totally understand where you're coming from. But please, for our listeners, tell us more about the poetry.
If you would have asked me this question like a couple of years back, I would laugh at myself and say poetry and creative writing in me, there is no way I can do it, I could have never thought I could write poetry and, I would do it. but I think I'm a people's person. My job also has been a lot of interacting with people, and I've always been very social, but I think I got very stuck in bounds because of fibromyalgia, and I had all these thoughts and ideas and things brewing in my head which I wanted to say, and so I kind of attempted to write blogs initially, but they were so long that my shoulders and neck would start paining while typing. And one fine day I just thought, let me just try poetry, and it wasn't half as bad, and that's when it just kicked in. I really enjoy the writing process. It's so cathartic for me. It's therapeutic, and I feel it's such a great way to raise awareness and tell other people what living with fibromyalgia is. So it's something that just happened. That's the one good thing fibromyalgia has given me. It's taken away a lot, but it's given me this.
That's
Gotcha.
great. That's great.
All right. Now, probably one of the most important questions I'm going to ask: when and where can we see your poetry and read it?
I post a lot of my poetry on Instagram, so
Okay.
you can find me on Instagram. It's my first name, last name, Arushi Lohiya, and I'm sure you guys would, you can add a link for your listeners so that they can go and check
She's
it out
reading our
there.
minds.
Yes, we're going to do that. We're going to definitely do that. We will put links for that on our website.
Yes. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And we do really enjoy your poetry, and we also really enjoy how upbeat and positive your Instagram feed is. And thank you for, being an inspiration for others out there with invisible illnesses, chronic pain, and fibromyalgia. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. And, it's so great what you guys are doing, getting people like us and our stories out there, and so many others who are going through similar things. They have this resource to come to. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you do.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for coming on our show. This has been great.
Yes.
Yeah, especially with the time difference. We appreciate you taking the time out of
Thank
your
you for
day.
staying up late. If our listeners have any questions or comments related to today's show, they can contact us at podcastdx@yahoo.com, through our website, podcastdx.com, on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, or Instagram.
And as always, please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any question you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking a healthcare regime, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
And if you do have a moment to spare, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast.
Till next week.